This week on RSBANDB Update, the Golden Partyhat arrives, and the finale of Once Upon a Time in Gielinor paints a picture of one of our possible futures. In an otherwise hefty set of patch notes, we discuss the exaggerated death of Magma Tempest and pontificate on Mod Iroh's departure. This is RSBANDB Update, episode 857, recorded Thursday, November 25th, 2021. Party Hat Fever. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of RSBANDB Update. I almost gave the wrong introduction here. I was hoping that we'd break a year-long curse and Tanis would be here for Thanksgiving, but he is not. He's feeling a little bit under the weather, which is unfortunate, but nonetheless, we do have some fine people here who are going to help us get through this episode and discuss a quest, amongst other things, some interesting combat changes, and, well, the future of Yaktrack and what that's going to lead us to next week. But joining us this week, Zerdones, welcome aboard.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
This is your first regular show. You were with us when we did the monthly bit about finishing off the God Wars, so I figured it'd be nice to have you on for a full show. And I know you had some thoughts about the quest, so I thought, okay, this is a good week for that.
Yeah, happy to be here.
And also joining us is Thaxi. Welcome back.
Hey, glad to be back.
I don't think we have math scheduled this week, but who knows?
Ooh, Magma Tempest, you might get a little. No promises, Shane.
It's back.
Surprise.
Math will creep in.
Of course.
No. We'll see if we can avoid it. It's good to be here.
With that being said, if you guys want to follow along, you can find full show notes at update.rsbnb.com. You can also, of course, join the Friends Chat, which is BitsBytes. And if you want to join Discord, if you just prefer to do it all out of game, we are at rsbnb.com/discord there. That'll pop you into the server, and we're going to start off this week with the quest, the finale of the Once Upon a Time mini quest, which is actually called Finale of all things, believe it or not. And this one continues from where we left off. Last time we were in the present, I think, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, interesting, yeah.
And now we're looking into the future. When did it feel as though it took a long time to get to this stage? Because I feel like we took what's like a 4 or 5 month break in between these when the other ones were about a month or two apart. I had to actually go back and look at what the past ones covered.
Oh, they definitely dropped
close together. I could have sworn there were 2 or 3 months between each.
Well, because we had all 3 of them out prior to City of Sentistan.
Yeah,
City of Sentistan was a big release, and then we've had Elder God since then. And so it's I think the most recent of these before finale was
like May.
Would have been May. Yeah.
So it's been a while.
January, March, May, and then now. So yeah, it's been a longer break for sure.
But nonetheless, with this, you start where you start all the other ones. You head to Closure's study, which you access through Death's office, and there you find a discussion going on between Relomia and Closure, and this discussion is talking about, well, I think the part that really threw me for one was seeing that they were actually talking about a future in which the World Guardian was no more and was actually dead.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Because you have to wonder what would kill the World Guardian, but I realize this is all...
We die a lot.
Beyond the point of the quest. Yeah, and I think, what was it? He said we have about 10 free deaths left before he'll start writing our autobiography, or our biography.
Oh, shoot. Well, Rax kind of took some of that out of me.
I was going to
say.
Oh. Yeah, it was burnt. Too late.
Fair enough. And in this, there's a new term being thrown around when Closure and Relomia are chatting with each other. It turns out that Relomia has taken up the mantle throughout all of the guiding of looking at her past and then the present and looking at Relomia's future. It turns out that she is the Time Guardian of all things.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of makes sense.
It does.
Right? She's been trained with Closure to, like, go back and change things that have happened.
And there's something that's been in my mind since we started this entire series back in January, and we'll see if that comes up at some point in relation to this on the discussion. But it definitely feels as though throughout all this, Relomia's character has been building to be used at some point in the future on something. I don't know if you guys felt this way and see that now.
I could definitely see it. She has been. She's an interesting character because, especially when we get to the way the quest ends, she's a really interesting link to Blitzkrieg in particular, and she works really well as a foil to us.
Yep.
Which I think is sort of broadly the point of this quest series. And I mean, we are sort of running out of friendly NPC characters who aren't gods.
That's a very good point.
Very
good point.
We're dead 4 times in a row. My first episode of RSBANDB, my first time on the podcast, actually, was the last run of this. And I remember having this conversation with you, Shane, that we were talking, and Tannis, about, like, is the World Guardian a good person? Like, Relomia really seems to be getting this, like, glow up of this, like, she's maybe not a good person, but that's okay. She's spacebarring through things.
She's the mirror version of us, effectively.
Kind of, yeah. And so we're, like, doing a lot of kind of, if they've created a dynamic character out of a static character, right? Like they've created some evolution depth to her that makes it really likely that she's going to be used in things in future. And I wonder if that's because they keep saying nobody's guessed where the Elder God Wars is going. We've still got these eggs sitting in there. You guys have done the whole, gamut on that stuff. But the question is, what happens afterwards? And if we kind of get rid of the gods, are they setting up for, like, is this Time Guardian going to be the next phase in our story? Or is it just we're going back to kind of the, behind the scenes, this is outside of canon? Because I'm kind of tempted to say this is outside of canon almost.
It certainly feels that way. It certainly feels that way. And there's I think, some ramifications that we'll get to in the memories or the future glimpses forward of what that's going to look like.
Definitely.
Let's dive into those right now. Which one did you guys go into first?
I went into the Black Knight Fortress. So that would be Meg's first.
I did Cammy first, and I want to do this one because I think this is the most important one of them.
We all three did a different order.
So you did.
I started with the other. I started with the other one first.
Okay, you did.
Interesting.
Philippi. Yeah. Philippi.
I did Carnelian and the World Gate first. Yep.
Okay. I just have to.
Cammy's is the one I'm most excited about.
Yeah, so I want to say that. I want to handle that one right now because this is a glimpse into a future that I think we would all love to see. And the reason I want to talk about this one, aside from any plot ramifications that come from this, is that holy cow, the environment here.
Oh, that was beautiful.
So this entire quest was a bottle quest except for that environment. I called this out to you, Shane. I can't remember if it was in the Discord or in messages, but like I must have said this screenshots. This is such a beautiful place, and like I would absolutely love to get, like, they clearly now have tree assets and environment assets and skybox assets for this place that does not yet exist. And
let's redo Karanja.
I'm really hoping. I think they're different. I think it was different palm trees. I don't know. I didn't recognize anything. Obviously, this giant gate and mountains everywhere.
It had a feeling of the Eastern lands to it. Let's be honest about that.
Well, it was It felt like the skull, and because that was we were way out at the end. But I would love to see an Arc expansion where we're going to some of those other islands. That would be so cool.
I think you two are the only ones who would like to see that.
Oh, we're definitely not.
Really.
We're definitely
I don't know that I want Salty Title 2.0, and if they did, please don't put another armor set on it that's 2/3 of the title that was the Treasure Hunter. That's wild. But that is again a topic for another time. I just think it is. I enjoy the arc, that mini quest series. I thought was really cool. I think there's a lot of lore to get into. It's a good land. It's like old school Hazia, and we have this the Washenko Isles that. We're closed off because of sea monsters. There's so many palaces. There's already so much lore there and places for us to visit that they just have to build the world for it.
It's so interesting because it's a very in story they've been off doing their own thing for ages. Yeah. It's almost like there's this whole other universe of lore and interactions and kingdoms and all this stuff. It seems like a very ripe source of content. great place to tell stories.
And they would need to add some scaling, right? Like the arc has issues with being only high level.
Yeah.
But again, we're digressing pretty far. The story there was great. I enjoyed this as a standalone quest. I enjoyed the puzzle solving, although a lot of it seemed very much like by the time I got to the third one of them, like I knew exactly where everybody was going and like who to talk to, and like it became very rapid because it felt a little repetitive. But the story was, interesting, and talking to everybody and seeing what Lomia thought of people, because that's what this seemed like to me. I didn't mind it as some story and content, and that the part on the arc there was just gorgeous, although they're making extinct the Fu Lion familiar follower pet that we have. But, I mean, again, story holes aside, like...
Yeah.
I don't know.
And, the thing I think that we can take away from all this, and I personally didn't think that the arc sequel, or let's just assume that we're thinking Skull on this, perhaps. We don't know which one it would be, but I didn't...
We do. They said which island. I just don't remember which region it was, so ignore me. I don't think it was Skull. I think it was way out the end.
All right. I will find that. Reminiscent of Kamishima. Shield.
Well, yeah, I think they said explicitly we were on Kamishima.
Yeah, so it's in the Shield then. I just looked that up. I didn't find the story of this side to be the main interesting one. I found it to be the environment and the fact that you would put this much environment work into what is, in effect, a mini quest for this.
Yeah, I had that thought too. Even. Like this is a lot of environment budget going into something that everyone's going to spend 5 minutes in.
Yeah.
Well, and you can free cam the entire length of that place. It is the
it's
full
a huge
free
map
cam
square.
width. It's a huge map square, and they filled it all in. It's all got trees. None of that is like in Sentistan. You can kind of see where the map ends and the like
the skybox
walkable area and the skybox is, and that, and like where the fake houses are that you can just zone through with your camera. This is like, it's all real environment that they actually mapped out and like built in. If you put your draw distance far enough, like you can see way out.
Yeah.
Like it really feels, again, and I think we'll come up to this in a minute again, but the environment team between Elder God Wars and through like this is just like somebody said, hey, this is the one asset we need for this quest. Everything else is pre-bottled. Like, can you just throw together, a couple different versions of the heroes that we have in different outfits and a big island? And somebody said, yeah, I've got a week. Let's do it. And just made
this is
this
more than a week's work.
Oh, I know. But whatever it was, just incredible, beautiful. Like, they knocked it out of the park and have been putting out environment after environment after environment that is just gorgeous and so well done. And the lighting is good, and the place is good, and the design is clean, and the click boxes.
So this means one of two things, I think. I think it means that there is some form of second version of the arc in development that we perhaps see in 2022. That's one potential thing that comes out of this, because I don't think you create an entire environment for this quest. I mean, they could because it's the anniversary quest, but I don't think you do that. The other possibility...
I'm skeptical.
The other possibility is for anybody who pays attention to the Jagex careers page, they are now developing an unannounced MMORPG. And, if there's environment assets available for that, presumably they'd work relatively easy across games.
You think that they would reuse rune code? Every time I hear a developer talk about rune code, they just shudder.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I don't know if they would want to do that, but maybe.
Well, no, you could in theory reuse assets without having that same old rune script backend behind it.
I don't know how this works, to be honest.
But any comments on the story here? Because I've just been oohing and ahhing a lot about the environment, but any comments on the story here on this one from either of you?
Story-wise, I have sort of a broad observation about the story of this mini quest as a whole that I think we'll probably get into a little later.
Okay.
But for this one specifically, I think it's really nice to come back to the Ports Adventurers.
Oh yeah,
because the Ports, the Ports is a really interesting storyline that I think a lot of people, and I know like me, I missed huge amounts of it because I was like, oh, this is whatever. But no, there's actually a really cool story in the Port storylines. And the Port's Adventurers are really interesting characters.
I unlocked my first one on my alternate account yesterday, and I'm so excited to play through those again.
It's that thing that you look at that kind of gives you the glimpse that, oh, there's other stuff happening beyond our shores that we might not necessarily be aware of.
Right, exactly.
Between the adventurers and the arc itself, there is so much story in there that people are just like, this is a grind that I don't want to do, and so I'm going to spacebar through everything. Right, and it's really sad, because there's, like, the occultist will forever hold a place in my heart as one of my favorite NPCs, because she's just a wild adventure of a human being.
Well, I mean, even I learned that last weekend when we were doing that, the fun little shenanigans in Elite Dungeon 1. So there's that.
Yeah. Some hidden stuff all over the place.
You guys good to move on to Philip Carnelian?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't have a whole lot of thought about any of these, to be totally honest. They seemed bottled. They were cool stories.
Exactly. And the reason I'm doing Philip Carnelian second is that I think that of the three story-wise, I feel like this one had the biggest impact in terms of potential foreshadowing of what we could be looking at for story going forward. Because in this one, you get taken to the World Gate, and you need to assign your adventures in such a way that when this dastardly, deadly Saradominist fighter comes through the World Gate, you will be able to, in effect, push it back to the other side. And this is because there are apparently cultist Saradominists somewhere.
Well, so they said that explicitly. So they're coming from Terragard.
Terragard, right?
Yeah, so the original home world of humans, Saradomin specifically, and our old buddy Oreb the Magister.
Right.
So the story that we've been given on this is the Magisters of Terragard, who are sort of the ruling council of Terragard, who Saradomin left in charge thousands of years ago.
Yep.
They have some disagreement with Saradomin now. And they are saying that the Saradomin that we know and love is not the true Saradomin.
Right.
And they are leading a holy crusade to destroy the false god. And we
and that's going to spill
like
over into
that.
our world.
Yeah.
And the thing that I think that I tied this to in my head is we have heard that after Elder God Wars, things are going to go back to a more basic kind of storytelling between various characters and various factions. And this, as a glimpse, could provide some angle of what the Saradomists from Terragard could potentially be playing a role in that storyline with.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, again, I'm so hesitant to accept any of this as canon, just because I'm not even, like, they've mentioned, too, that they want to kind of remove so much of the godly influence from the storyline because they want the player to feel more agency. And, like, this is very much implying Saradomin at the time of the future is still that I think he's going to die, but, like, alive and kicking and influential on Gielinor. And, like, the thing that they reused was just a straight up, like, what is that? I don't think it was Yak Trek. It was, like, one of the Premier Club cosmetics. It just, like, they had chucked a body in. And, like, oh, man. It would be such a cool story beat to have, like, you know, like, I would love to use the World Gate. Like, that's the other thing. Is the Ark and the World Gate are the two, like, let's make an expansion into somewhere.
Yep, absolutely.
And it brings up, like, issues of, like, Mazcab, where Mazcab is a beautiful, lovely place, but also it's accessed through this one very specific portal, and so it's not, like, clearly on your beautiful, gigantic game map that this part of the world exists. So that you get the same problem with going through the World Gate for these things. Also, just, like, these people are invading, but their only invasion point is the World Gate. Like, okay, we've got a lot of gods. Somebody can just chuck a bomb at this thing and just...
Yeah, I feel like we got this.
Or we could just, you know, hide it like it was hidden at one point, right?
Yeah.
We don't know if it was hidden or if nobody knew where it... Or if nobody knew where it was. I don't know if it was... I don't even know if it's movable necessarily. We've never seen it elsewhere.
No. And, you know, I have lore questions as well, in particular, of who exactly knows about the World Gate. I mean, we know we do. The Majorat do, obviously.
Gods do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gods do.
I think it's one of those like best kept secrets of the world. That's my guess, anyways. That like the people in the know, the people in power are aware that this exists, and the common people have like no like concept of the fact that there are other planes out there, other than like maybe occasionally doing things. But yeah.
And when you finish up with Philip Carnelian, your character says, "Are things always this bad in the future?" Which, you're entirely right that this could be just something to be treated as non-canon, because how many times have we seen our favorite TV shows have glimpses into the future that never pan out to be true, right?
So that's something I want to mention, because Mod Rowley on Twitter...
Right, he wrote this one.
So take this for what it's worth. Mod Rowley on Twitter has said that the memories that we go to they have some basis in things the lore council is discussing. Whether or not those coalesce into actual stories, or if they do, whether they coalesce into stories anytime in the near future, don't know.
Okay.
But I think it's clear that everything we're seeing is at least plausibly a future storyline.
True.
On the table. I shouldn't say plausibly, possibly a future storyline.
Yeah, and it may be a case where like they just come back to that blip and be like, aha, this person in the Premier Club armor just gets replaced with an actual NPC from this place, these Terra Guardians, right? Like, there's definitely opportunity for them to just make these real things. So I don't want to like totally knock that out of there, but
all right,
I'm cautious.
Let's move on to Meg
into
then.
Any of this.
At the Black Knight Fortress, and you said, Thaxi, this is the one you started with, right?
I did.
I started with this one.
Okay,
I started with Carnelian.
Why'd you start with Meg?
Honestly, she was the one I saw first.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw Carnelian first. Right. I saw Carnelian first. I didn't realize there was more than one.
Because I know that there's, in parts of the community, there's a good deal of hatred towards Meg for various reasons, but nonetheless.
Sure.
Thoughts on the Black Knight's Fortress, Serdones, then?
It was fun. I think of all of them, it was the most fun, which I think is what you're going to get when you have Meg as one of the primary
kind
characters.
Of a heist kind of thing, right?
Yeah, kind of a heist, kind of a little bit off the wall.
Yeah. Oh, we're just going to use Raptor. We're just going to use this big step stool to get into the window.
Yeah, what could go wrong?
Good cutscene with this one too. I enjoyed watching that because, of course, our character has done this in a different way. Of course, infiltrated the Black Knight's fortress numerous times.
Did you catch the reference to that? By the way, there are two references that I saw at least.
Couple.
Yeah,
Cabbages one was definitely
Cabbages.
Yeah, I saw that one. What's the other one?
And Meg's outfit.
It's a bronze med helm and an iron chain body.
Yep.
Which is enough to get in because that's, of course, what you always needed to wear when you were.
It's not what the guards wear anymore, but
no, it's not.
It's what they used to do back in plastic.
Yeah, of course.
Too.
Yeah. And then Ysera sneaking in through Briggs sneaking in through the top. Higgs.
I love that character's name.
Previously Bosun. Yes. Excellent. No longer Sergeant Higgs doesn't have the same ring to it. And they mentioned that too. Like, I loved talking to all these people and just hearing Rolomia's memories of them. That's what that's what I'm keeping as canon from this. Actually, is the how Rolomia thinks. Point. Like, if anything else comes out of this is character development for Rolomia with the bottle quest of like seeing other things, and regardless of how they end up working it into canon or not, that's the big takeaway from this for me is Rolomia's opinions.
Yeah, and I don't know if this was the one that we had you on for, or if it was Questcaping. I don't remember who we had this discussion with, but there was a question of if Rolomia's character was going to be morally gray or not.
That was me.
Okay.
I mentioned that to you, that we had this conversation of...
Yeah.
I think I asked you and Tannis what you thought about the player character being a bad person, because we are very clearly a little bit we definitely lean into the blackmail and the low-key killing everything murder hobo and the we're very easily manipulated and all these things that the player character does. That
so the question is...
Doing through these early quests again is showing me we are a bad person.
So the question is...
we do things that are wrong.
Is seeing this future version of Rolomia, do you still think that she is that morally great character?
I mean, the way that she goes about things is very typical RuneScape style.
Yeah.
Maybe she seems to be more of a reflection of the player, I'll say. In these.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the perfect way
very
of
much
doing it.
our foil.
I can see her doing bad things, and I can see her being easily manipulated, and I can see her like doing all these, like being put in kind of a similar situation. Yeah. Again, I think she's got some good use. We still don't know what the whole thing was after Sliske's endgame, where, what's going on with that and the player and our abilities.
But she might as well appear in, Elder God Wars at some
will.
point, right?
I think she will. So
it
we'll
would
have to
definitely
see how
because I remember when they announced when they did the big Elder God Wars reveal back in the end of 2020, and Mod Osborne said pretty much everything we do in 2021 will tie into the Elder God Wars somehow.
Mm-hmm.
This series was kind of the dark horse, kind of the odd duck in that, because it didn't tie in any obvious way. So if they do bring Relomia in, that would be a really interesting way to sort of tie those storylines together.
Yeah, and she is already tied into it. I'm gonna just move a bit past the memory of Meg, if that's okay with you guys, because
I don't have anything else to say there. Enjoyed it.
You close off the quest by talking with Closure, of course, and you get your lamp and the teleport animation override, but there is one other thing you can do with this. And
secret.
This is where it becomes interesting. Closure disappears. So you take the opportunity to go into the back room of his study. And inside of the drawer, one of the drawers, you find what effectively amounts to a clue scroll. And this clue scroll leads you to Relomia, the emissary NPC in Draenor Village. And you dig beside her and you uncover the clue scroll. That's where you get the outfit from, which looks tremendous, I might add.
Yeah, it's very cool.
There is also
turn on bloom. Turn your bloom onto high, and it just pops.
Yeah. So there is also some extra dialogue with Relomia in Draenor. I almost gave away what was going to happen with this.
Yeah, I missed that when I played.
I actually have not done this yet on my main. I've been focused so heavily on questing on the alt that I have not gone back on my main to claim the extra reward yet. So I'm excited to read through that when I get there.
So, and I'm going to spoil this for you right now because I am going to read it. So you ask what the riddle was, and you obviously the riddle takes you to Draenor Village, and then when the character says, "Wait, are you saying that shadow and light, or light and shadow?" And then as your character says that, boom, the light voice appears. "Do you think she means us?" And the shadow voice says, "Why would she? No one else knows about us but your character name." Relomia says, "I meant light and shadow." Then they both get excited. "See, she does mean us." And then shadow voice says, "She doesn't know what she's talking about." And then following that, we learn that Relomia can hear the light and shadow voices as well, because she says, "Of course I know what I'm talking about, silly." Your character says, "Wait, you can hear them?" Shadow voice says, "There's nothing special about this one. Don't be silly." Light voice says, "Hey, Relomia's cool in my book. Don't be mean." And then this dialogue ends off with Relomia saying, "Thanks, Light, you're my favorite, but shh, don't tell Shadow." Your character's still surprised that she can hear them. And Relomia says, "Obviously, I have my own. They're not like yours. Mine are green and blue. The blue one's all spontaneous and curious, and the green one measured and cautious. They've been quiet since I started reading my biography, though. But now's not the time for this. Go solve the riddle." So the light and shadow is not necessarily the same across everybody. Light and shadow is the world guardian.
The gift of Sliske.
So the gift of Sliske isn't necessarily that it's light and shadow for every being on Gielinor. It's light and shadow specifically for you, the world guardian.
Well, and we don't know Because we started hearing the voice after we received the gift of Sliske at the end of, what was that, Endgame? So it may be that it is only Sliske's chosen who hear this. And we will remember that Sliske has very few living followers. like very few.
Yeah, I mean, Relomia was added basically because everyone kept bothering Mod Raven. Everyone kept going to Raven saying, we want to follow Sliske. He said, why? He's the bad guy. Fine. I'll send you an emissary who insults you all the time.
Yeah. And so it may be that it's a Sliske specific thing, and that, like, we can read a lot, I think, into those voices potentially, and how she hears them, and how that affects kind of, we'll say, Time Guardian and potential future. Like, we could wax endlessly, I think, like, coming up with theory crafting on this.
Yeah.
Not to get too crazy into it, but it is. Yeah, I mean, the other thing too is that she can hear them, and nobody else that we've heard of can hear those voices.
Yeah, and she can hear ours, but we can't hear hers.
Are they good or bad?
Yeah.
Which,
though I guess that they're not speaking because she said she was reading her biography, so we don't know if we could hear.
Maybe.
Hers.
But so that's got something to do with all of everything as well, I think. Well, they'll unpack that at some point.
Yeah.
The gift of Sliske is a double-edged sword. We do not know what was done to us, or is it actually Sliske that is these voices, or is it a fragment of his personality? Is it just the idea of him that is, speaking through these personas? Did he go mad by going too deeply into the Shadow Realm too often?
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
Did his personality get split among all of these people that were present around the, who knows? So time is going to have to tell us for all of that.
Yeah, and I think if anything, at the end of the day, this just sets Relomia up to be used in a very different way than players have anticipated her being.
Absolutely.
And that raises a lot of interesting questions for the upcoming end of the Elder God Wars. I think there's one other point I want to make about this quest before we move on, is that one of the criticisms I heard was that this turned out to be more about, in the end, more about Relomia than about us, when the perception when we first had this way back when in January was that this was going to be a quest looking back at different aspects of our growth as a character.
Yeah. Yes. So this is the overarching thing that I wanted to get back to. So I hear this criticism, and I understand where it comes from. I respectfully disagree with it.
All right.
Interesting.
Because so first off, the broad intent of this quest, and this isn't me theory crafting. This is what Mod Osborne has said. He said that on the second most recent live stream, I think, where he said the idea was, we had the first part, which was the It's a Wonderful Life. What would have been if you weren't here, kind of thing. And then the three parts after that were how you affected the past, how you affect the present, and how you affected the future. So the first part, flashbacks, that's the looking back. This is what we've done. This is looking back at our accomplishments.
Remember your old quests and tell me about them.
Right,
tell me
exactly.
How yes,
relive your glory days. The third part, Fortune, was this is what you are in the future, in the present. This is you in the moment, helping, being the world guardian, helping a person to become their best self.
Right.
The final part, which is this one, finale, is about how you have shaped the future, how your presence and your actions within the world have inspired the next generation that will come after you. So I've been racking my brain for days trying to think of it, because there's a Superman comic that did something similar. And I think it might have been All-Star Superman or whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow, something like that. But Superman is at the end of his days, and he's concerned, like, did I do right? Was I good? And he's shown you inspire, like, what comes after you is generations, a line of Supermen into the future who will go on and do good. And you did that.
So maybe that's why
is there because of you.
So maybe that's why they say the World Guardian is dead. at one point.
Right. Well, because like that story doesn't make sense if we're in it.
Yeah.
It's a story that only works when we're dead, which I think is why this didn't hit well for a lot of people.
Right.
Because we can't die. If the World Guardian dies, the game is over.
Well, because in theory we revive because we've got some godly protection, and death says, "Nah, you're cool. You still have a role to play." Yeah, and at some point our role is done.
We know in canon that at some point the World Guardian will die. The Balance Elemental, way back in While Gothic Sleeps.
Oh, yeah.
We saw you, like, this is a deep cut, but they say, "I was at your funeral. One day you will end." And, like, we know the World Guardian is mortal. Eventually they will end. But, like, within the context of the game, like, we are the lens through which the universe occurs. Like, conceptually, our character can never die, or else the game ends, or at least the game as we know it ends.
Yeah, obviously.
Right. Shout out hardcore, and then
yeah, except for the hardcores. So I get what they were trying to do. I think it maybe didn't hit well for a lot of people for that reason, because it's a story that only makes sense if we aren't in it. But we'll always be in it. We have to be.
Yeah. And there's always, I think, and it probably comes down to the frame of what was laid out when we first heard about this in January, that this entire quest on its whole, including all the parts, was supposed to be a look back at the last 20 years in terms of what your character has done. Because I remember there being a point in which that was the frame, but then now, of course, we're looking at it from different perspectives. Like you said, if you weren't there, the past, the present, and now the future. Which
I think it's a good way to end the 20th anniversary, because like we're all coming out of 2021 hoping that there's going to be another 20 years of RuneScape.
Right.
So we've had our retrospective. Weren't the last 20 years great? And they were. And now we're at the end of that, and we're saying, what are we going to do next? What comes after this? And the future is bright. The future is exciting.
Here's my only clapback to this, is that, that is a way of saying, here's some story to go with your 20 years of story. But it seems like that is more of a, like, how do I put this? It's set up. It doesn't feel like the main event itself, right? Like it doesn't feel like it's celebrating or reviewing things that we've done. To me, more like it's, it doesn't celebrate 20 years of RuneScape past. It celebrates the last couple of years and the next couple of years.
I can see that.
My comparison would be something like the Gower quest, right? Like the Gower quest to me feels like what I was expecting out of a 20th anniversary quest, where it's some good memes, some funky puzzles, definitely outside of canon.
Breaking the fourth wall.
We're going to throw back to all of our like funny interactions and creepy models and like stuff that isn't in use currently, and like the things that we said we were going to get at one point, and then they realized, hold on, that's actually not going to happen because of development time, or it's bad for the game, whatever it is. We'll just chuck that stuff in this quest and like make a big joke out of it. And that RuneScape humor, that classic and essential RuneScape humor.
That's what people were expecting.
Yeah. There was humor in this, but it wasn't the lighthearted kind.
Right, but I think when you look at it in its own way, the narrative direction that came from this, based on what Mod Osborne said, I think works perfectly on this, and everybody who worked on all the various pieces were able to execute it wonderfully.
Meets what they said they were trying to do, right? Like I'm not saying that they were trying to make a Gower quest and they ended up here.
Correct.
They clearly wanted to make this and they ended up here. And as a quest, like, I'm looking forward to playing through it again in a single run on my alt account.
I was actually contemplating doing that this weekend as well.
Seeing if it, because I feel like it was a relatively disparate quest. Like all of the parts of this were very differently designed.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of just interested to see how it goes together.
Yeah.
And if it's, because all the parts of it were fine and enjoyable, I'm always happy to have quest content. I replayed both Ratcatchers and Garden of Tranquility in the last day, and I have opinions.
Yeah.
But
Garden of Tranquilizers, we called
those.
it back in the day. Anyways, yeah, I get where you're both coming from, and I think it's important that players look at it from that perspective. So that's good. Obviously, with this wraps it all up, and there was a lot of discussion at the beginning about whether or not these would go in the quest log, or if there would be quest points associated with them. They weren't sure if they were going to do that, but lo and behold, here we are at the end of this. Each one is worth 1 quest point for a grand total of 4, bringing us up to the mystical 425 quest points, and the next dice and the next set of unlocks at the quest point shop.
Yes.
Shane,
So
what a segue.
5 million coins.
Also, what a dice. Yep. I found out today that if you put the masquerade mask on while you have overrides, and I don't know if it's my specific override or what it was, it makes you bald. I had to reapply my hair because I got a masquerade mask out of my dice. Like, oh, it actually doesn't normally look like that.
Do I have a masquerade mask? I'm going to try that.
And I don't know if it's just female hair. What did I have equipped for my head? I think I had, I can't remember, did it unequip my head override too?
Evening masquerade mask?
Just masquerade mask, yeah. QUE for masquerade.
I have an evening masquerade mask.
That might be it.
Okay, let me try it.
Sold for 1.25 on the G. So
I got a black hobby unicorn.
That's not bad.
Oh no, that's those aren't bad.
I got a Reaper ornament kit. Very excited.
Are those still worth like 20 mil?
The GE mid is 10 mil, I think, but I am keeping it because I already had a sold ornament kit, and I'm about 200 Reaper points away from being able to make my first EOF.
Nice.
Oh my gosh, so exciting.
Yes.
Total tangent, what are you putting in it?
I have no idea. I will probably ask you for advice.
Just get a stack of dark bows and a stack of gothic staffs and a stack of, we're about to talk about this, but dragon halberds. That'll come up later.
Halberds. All right.
We'll get to it later.
Okay. Well, nonetheless, we talked about our dice. I did see some people get an ice die, so lucky to them. I guess we'll be waiting another 25 quest points for the next dice.
Yep.
You can get dice out of those?
Yeah.
Anything
they roll anything on the master table.
Yeah, anything on the master table.
And the last dice will be the next one, which I am disappointed that there's not going to be more little carnelian boys and little dragons, because I want the next dragon mask.
Well, there's a new carnelian showing up for 450.
I know that one. Get one more. And maybe that just means that they'll never hit 500 quest points or 475, and that would make
be the
sad. I hope
level of foreshadowing, but okay.
All right. Because of the quest point story, they're not going to. No, that's ridiculous. I'm perfectly aware.
Right. Let me tell you guys a story. Once upon a time in Gielinor, it was the 20th anniversary. As we headed into December, everybody was awaiting the Christmas event to come forward. But before that, we were promised a yak track. But before the yak track, we were delivered the Golden Partyhat hunt. How are you guys doing with this?
I am doing pretty well. I am 6 of 8 on my main and 4 of 8 on my ult.
Nice. I'm 5 of 8.
Oh, nice.
I am 6 of 8 on both. I have 2 skilling. Or actually, no, I'm 5 of 8 technically on both. I'll get the 6th from the yak track. I have 2 skilling shards on each account.
It's too bad we weren't all at different places. Then we'd fit nicely into a Borg unit complex.
I don't know what that means.
Star Trek reference.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm an uncultured nerd.
No, you're fine. I'm betting.
Just have to be on different Unimatrixes.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. That's the spirit.
I have so many thoughts about this as a thing. People have been wildly impatient this week and need to just calm down a little bit.
That's why I wasn't even going to talk about it.
It's okay. I mean, it's fine. Everybody will get their shards. Some people that bought them for 30 mil will be like, "Why did I buy this for 30 mil?" Unless you immediately sell your hat, in which case maybe I think we can say safely they will eventually be worth money. I think we can say safely there will be merchant guilds with giant stacks of them and relatively few in the actual economy.
We did hear on the live stream this week that as of Wednesday there was already more than 1,000 in game.
Unsurprised by that. I would be. I mean, if only because there are more than 1,000 people with trimmed completionist capes who,
for sure.
who like play the game all the time and will have guaranteed got like right. If I'd been playing Taxi this week instead of the alt, I would have had a party cat a day and a half ago. Like just based on I would have AFK'd something and then AFK'd something else and then just gotten done right. Like just to have it out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, most people that I've seen in Clan Quest have been getting them after 3, 4, 5 hours of skilling.
That seems to be about the average mark.
At the outlier, you get the odd person who's gone like 10 hours dry, but that's very uncommon.
Yeah.
Heard nobody more than 10.
The funniest thing for me on this is my gathering one came from farming.
Sure.
Of course.
And my combat one came from magic while doing telekinetic grind.
Nice.
We got an artisan shard each from I can't remember what capsule is. Taxi got hers from making headless arrows while hosting POH altar, so that the alt could train prayer, and the alt got the combat shard on prayer. A lovely time. Interesting group of people came through on that world, but an interesting experience. Cool nonetheless. The alt needed it. I don't know. I think the item we mentioned this a couple of weeks ago when we first announced it. They made the hat. It looks a lot like the money on the money tree. They got the tone and the color. It's nice and shiny. Yep. It's a pretty item. I am keeping both of mine because I think they look cool, and I'll make some outfits out of them to wear as a celebration item.
Yeah.
The inventory icon is orange.
I hate it.
Yes.
It's so vibrant and obnoxious. Why? Jamflex, please just make it a dark yellow.
They said they didn't want to do yellow.
Because they want to distinguish it from the yellow party.
Yeah.
They want to make it very, very, very obvious.
Understandable. Did a good job too of not making it look too much like the yellow P hat. Like, again, I think the design on it is good. The obtaining the shards is incredibly reasonable, right? Like I think you get 2 or 3 shards for free, depending on how you get. Like, if you play the game for like 15 hours doing a variety of things, you will get no matter what you're doing, you will probably get shards from it.
Yep.
I think it would be challenging to not receive these, even if you're just logging in for daily challenges. So
you will get them over time, over the entire month, if you probably just do your daily challenges. That's actually a really good way of looking at it.
I will get the combat one from just daily Reapers this week. I'll do 10 hours of combat between raids and Reapers just this week. Like that, not incredibly concerned at all.
Right, so, and, talk to the wise old man. That's an easy one. Complete the quest. Easy one. Level 15 in the free track of Yak Track. Another easy one. And if you buy the Premier Club, there's number 4.
Yep.
Right.
So,
then, on average, 15, 20 hours of skilling, or if you, whatever you're looking. So that's...
The one that seems to have the most variance is the clue one. I've seen some people go very, very dry on that one.
I saw somebody do like 250 easies. Apparently it scales with clue tier.
It does.
Kebab was saying that's confirmed. So if somebody did like 30... I've seen 32 masters and 250 easies are the 2 people that I saw that got them.
Yikes.
So,
I saw one...
You can do multiple easies in a minute.
Another interesting thing to note is that for Dungeoneering, it's at the end of the floor, and for Slayer, it's at the end of a task.
So what my thoughts on those is that they treated it the same way they treated agility for the pet. I believe all of these are tick based, and I believe it counts up ticks for each activity you do, right? So almost every activity has a set amount of ticks. It takes 4 ticks to burn a log on a bonfire. It takes, on average, 3 ticks to light a log
regularly. As your ticks
regularly.
Get higher, you have a higher chance of getting it. Yeah.
Agility courses are all assigned a number of ticks for the pet. So like the Anachronia Agility course is 8 minutes. It is 800
But it's actually
ticks.
per obstacle for the shard.
Is it? Okay.
Or no. Sorry, it's per obstacle on Anachronia.
It's per tick generally. A lot of people have gotten them from the auto cycles in the empty throne room.
The Anachronia I don't know how it's broken down, but a full lap of the Anachronia Agility course will give you 800 ticks worth of chances to obtain the pet. Exactly 8 minutes. So if you are doing the course in 6 minutes, you have 1.3 times chance to get the pet over somebody who is doing like the Perfidious course, which is very clearly it takes almost exactly 48 seconds or whatever it is for the average lap, because you can just spam click it. So I think they probably did the same thing with Slayer, where they just a Slayer task of this number of this task multiplies to give you this many ticks worth of progress, and they have back-end counters, right? Because they're saying that counts up between skills and counts up everything you do.
Yep.
I think marks of war, because it's 1,000 an hour, are probably based on marks. I had a raid earlier today where I had 3 people obtain the Partyhat shard in a single raid group, which is only two drops of things, but it's 1,000 total marks of war. Right. And I could be wrong. It could have just been very, very good luck on those people's parts, but.
Yeah, and I think the thing we want people to take away from this is, don't panic. You're going to get it by the end.
Yeah, exactly.
And
we talked about what.
And only buy the 30 million if you get to the end and you don't have it.
Yeah, that's my plan.
Other thing to mention here is we mentioned the Wise Old Man earlier, and I think we should talk about the whole redesign they did for the Grand Exchange. Can we just take a second to
I've
already applauded the environment artist this episode, but we need to do another round of this because they knocked this out of the park. It is so pretty and glowy. I love the trees that are in here. These big pine trees. I don't know if these are from somewhere. They look new to me. Maybe they're from Violet is Blue or something. They've been reused, but the trees are just gorgeous around the Grand Exchange. I know they're in the way, but handles, the lighting on it is so good. And I was mentioning this to you guys before the show, but for everybody else, I absolutely adore the skybox and lighting in here. I really hope that they keep this around afterwards, because there's very few skyboxes in the game. It's basically Shattered Worlds is kind of it. That's nice and vibrant with a good sightline, long fog distance by without presetting it, which changes some of the other settings in unfortunate ways. It's vibrant, but it's also dark, so it minimizes eye strain. I would use this skybox everywhere. I am a Max Guild person who's lived in the Max Guild for a long time, and I've been intentionally wearing my Luck of the Dwarves so that I can teleport to the Grand Exchange for any trading I need to do, because I've just been enjoying being there so much.
It is such a nice environment.
They kudos to them on just redesigning the actual central tower of the Grand Exchange. The whole 9 yards of it is so pretty to me.
It's wearing a party hat.
Gorgeous.
Just the lighting on it is well done. It's not the flat, plasticky textures that they've been using on a lot of things, even the leaves and the Anachronia trees. They were using these. This actually looks like they have a texture rather than just a flat they've built in with polys. This actually looks like they applied a texture onto everything. It looks like real cloth shapes. I just think it's very well done. So shout out to the environment team for this one. Please keep the skybox around if anybody hears this. I just love it so much.
I don't think you're getting it this year, but I think it'd be a perfect thing that you could rope into a yak track in the future or something like that.
A skybox? Maybe.
Yeah, a skybox. But then you'd have the problem that not many people know how to change their skyboxes anyways, so yeah.
People need I need to get the Nightstone unlocked on my ult, because it's the closest thing to this. Nightstone or Shattered Worlds or something.
This will probably form the thumbnail of this week's podcast too, I think.
Oh my gosh, gorgeous.
I
didn't have any. I don't have anything else for this.
So the other thing I think that we'll mention with this is just a note from the live stream this week. Dummies do not work, but proteins do.
Dummies don't work. The Silverhawks and the other drop cleaners, most of the drop cleaners don't work.
Yeah,
assuming that you can't get the summoning, a shard from summoning from the imp. Although that's combat anyways. Yeah. Well,
so that's to be
the
expected.
only other point I would make is they made a point of this in the live stream that the bad luck mitigation on shards is per category, not per skill. Mm-hmm. So if you change skills, you don't lose your back, the bad luck mitigation.
Back end counters.
Oh, that explains why I got the magic one, or the combat one with magic then, because I did do a bunch of reapery things before that day.
Yep.
I was saying it counts up ticks.
And you also don't lose those stacks if you change between categories. So if you've been going hard on combat and you're getting bored, switch over to gathering. You will never lose bad luck mitigation.
Yeah, I very seriously think they just applied a handful of additional back-end like numbers to characters, variables, and just said every tick you get in a gathering skill will add something to this variable.
Yep.
When you hit certain values, that changes your bad luck mitigation.
Yeah.
Like that's my guess for how that.
And there's already things like that for thresholding with 120s and 200 mils for skill pets too. So it'd be relatively easy to hook into. So.
Outfit shards and
all right,
so on and so forth.
Before we move on, I think I'll thank some Patreon supporters. It's been far too long. Should have done that a while ago. But this week I'd like to thank Amos Reed, Andrew C., Arvids L., Christian S., Chunk the Monk, Cook Me Plonks, Diana, Drama Free, Duramax, Elo Matey, Free Milk, Jade Gizmo, Jason S., Jeebus, Jesse W., Kesky, Lucky Ducky, Nate the Great, Renhawk, Ricky A., Samuel FL, Scott DS, Seth W., Singer, Stub Eve, The Bears OP, The Naked Captain, The Lion, Tom V., and Zant. Thank you, all of you, for your support. It does truly mean the world to us. And in case you're wondering what this is all about, you can check us out at patreon.com/RSBANDB. There, for as little as $1 a month, you gain access to the entire back catalog of monthly bits. These are our bonus shows where we talk about things from such as how the Elder God Wars will end. We'll talk about the PVM economy like we did last December, or what the future of the game looks like after RuneScape Mobile, which is the one we're currently working on right now. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, you can learn more about that at patreon.com/RSBNB. We also do have the VIP tier where somebody can sign up and receive a VIP rank on Discord for $3 a month. And with this, you also get high-quality stereo versions of the show. And we do have our insider tier for $5 a month, where you get a shout-out each and every week on the podcast, and gain access to the outtakes that we use to make the clip show at the end of the year, which is right around the corner now. But, of course, we are working to the Patreon postcard, which will include a nice piece of exclusive artwork to anybody who provides shipping information when we hit the 200 mark. And when we hit 500, if we ever hit 500, that mythical number, Tanis and I and a few other participants will subject their taste buds to a whole range of spice in the Hot Ones challenge. And I've been looking for people who would be interested to sign up for that. Zerdones, can I interest you?
I like spice. I don't know if I like spice that much.
And
I don't know if the spice would like me that much.
And I've already heard that Thaxi cannot take spice, so that makes you a prime candidate.
Yeah, I'd be interested for the sake of the content and seeing how that would go. I think that would be entertaining. It really sounds like you've got a bunch of people who can handle their spiciness.
Yeah.
I cannot. I, as a child, bought mild ketchup. This is a product that exists in the world. I have gotten so much better, but I am a mild salsa chooser. So that would be an adventure for me.
Yeah, I think we got to get some people on both sides of the gambit there. So I think Tanis falls on the can't take it side, but it's not as bad as you. Not as bad as you on that. So patch notes. So this week with the patch notes, Ninja Strike 28, Pets and Familiars. A number of other pets have been made. Inventory? No, not inventory. They've been interface pets. That's the word. The Abyssal Minion, Baby Basilisk, Mini Trice, and Baby Krask have all been made those. And there's a bit of a formatting problem with the patch notes, but we pulled that together. Pets that were recently converted from object pets to follower pets were missing special effects, texts, and animations that would trigger when the pet was active. This has now been fixed. And fixed an issue where some familiar special attacks weren't usable via the action bar.
Right.
Interestingly enough. I wonder what that was. So I know I didn't have a problem with any of those.
I haven't either. I mean, I know the ones that are commonly used didn't have an issue.
Yeah.
Like Ripper and the Steel Titan and those. So I can't tell you. I know that you can use even like Fire Titan, like the old ones, like because I've done Fire Titan scrolls from my inventory to heal and repot. It's a good defense potion on my alt when I'm doing Arclaysor.
Okay. Let's go back to summer 2017 and the launch of Menaphos.
Okay.
I know a lot of people who burnt out trying to get the completionist requirement for the city quest.
It's not on completionist in any way, shape, or form. It's only rune score.
Okay. Well,
is like 50 rune score.
Which one? Because there is some that's on trim.
The two specifically that are not on trim, that are annoying, that they've recently addressed are city quests, 200 city quests completed and 200 shifting tombs completed.
Right. So it would have been the trim one. Trim then.
Not trim. They're not on trim.
Oh, I thought
either of those are on trim.
Oh, right. So they pulled
you do
that
have
off.
to do some city quests for trim, but the 200 is not trim.
It's like 10. I have 13 city quests completed on my main, and my main has had trim for years.
I think I had to do 20, but yeah.
All right.
Definitely.
City quests now have a cooldown
for the rock. You need to get the stone from it. Yeah.
City quests now have a cooldown based on your reputation tier. By default, the cooldown is now 15 to 20 minutes. I think it was like an hour before, wasn't it, or something to that effect?
It used to be scaling. It
was 15 to 20.
What I read was it started at 5 minutes, and then the more of them you did, the longer it got between.
Okay.
It capped at, I think, 15 to 20 minutes.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's 100%.
Enough that it was annoying to you can't grind them.
That's 100% flat now. Tier 2 rep, it'll be 10 to 15 minute cooldown. Tier 4, 5 to 10 minutes. Tier 6, 0 to 5 minutes. And at Tier 8, there will no longer be a cooldown.
Yeah.
I think this is a great change.
It is.
I just feel sorry for
100%.
Anybody who'd done it in the past.
Yep.
Well, those people that are sitting at the top of the rune score leaderboards because they enjoy grinding or they feel like they need to grind. I don't feel bad for them. There are 600 people who have higher rune score than I do. I am willing to bet less than 500 people have completed 200 city quests purely for the sake of rune score and not because they enjoyed city quests. So,
there's
it can deal. Yeah.
All right.
No one likes city quests.
No.
Let's put that on the table.
They were okay on release. The problem is they have not aged well at all. And they have not addressed that with this, which is the true problem here from my brain, is that they still require you to have several thousand of random seeds, which at the time cost 1 or 2 GP, and now cost much more because of player-owned farm, right? Hundreds of times that.
Yep.
Or they'll have you go and kill specific. Like, they have not aged well, kind of similar to skilling pets, where skilling pets were designed based on the highest XP per hour available at the time. Now XP per hour has gone up for everything, so the tick-based pets now all suck to get, and some of the XP pets, like farming, is now the most common pet in the game because farming XP went up like mad.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is another case where this is content that was not designed to age well and has not aged well.
Yeah, and Ninja Team can only do so much with that. Other things they did this week.
City quests are not the biggest priority.
Yeah. Info box now appears when a new city quest is available. The city quest enhancer has been buffed so that it will now double the base reputation gained, doubles the progress for fight for your right set of achievements, and doubles the amount of rolls for the 2 jewels from the Jewels of the Elid collection.
Which is great. You had a grind that was, not even, like 20 hours.
Cool.
Is now like 10 hours. That's great. These are and a lot of the enhancers are not incredibly useful these days. That's a useful enhancer.
Yeah, I agree. And that'd be something else I'd like to see how to look at in the future.
Yeah.
Next up, Cleave and Sweep have been fixed where they were sharing the same cooldown before. In order to combat this, now a debuff icon has been added to show that the ability is on cooldown. Cleave will remain on a 7.2 second cooldown, but Sweep has its own 7-second cooldown. As a result of this, using Sweep no longer puts Cleave on cooldown and vice versa.
I mentioned this earlier. We talked about this a bit in pre-show. Do either of you know off the top of your heads what the Sweep ability is?
No.
No. I don't even think I have it on my action bar.
There's a reason for that. The reason is that it is the special attack of the Dragon Halberd.
Oh.
Yeah. Apparently, the special attack of the Dragon Halberd shared a cooldown with Cleave. for no apparent reason. It's an interesting ability. It hits everything in front of you. It is an AoE like Cleave. And it has, obviously, halberd range when used from a dragon halberd, so it is compatible with a halberd range special attack. Does 230% average damage and costs 30% adrenaline. Which is all to say that there are some people that use like Dragon Claws as a special. This is going to be very close to that damage, but in an AoE in front of you.
So if you have an EOF, pop that Dragon Halberd in there and you just got another melee AoE.
The alternative, right, so Dragon Claws is the one that people most primarily use. The other option would be the second tier of melee for cheap special attacks is the Dragon Dagger and the Dragon Mace. The Mace is actually better, but it only hits once, so if you're using poison, it becomes wibbly-wobbly, it makes very little difference. This is slightly better than both of those. Dragon Dagger is about 200%. The Mace is about 210 average. This is about, again, 230. Hits everything in front of you. Those both cost 25% adren. This costs 30 and has a cooldown. Basically, if you're doing Slayer and you have an aggression pot running and you're against stuff that's meleeing you, you can 100% just run Cleave and just destroy things. They've got separate cooldowns, it says now, right? So you can use Cleave into Sweep, into Hurricane, into Quake, and just everything around you dies.
But that, of course, really requires the essence of finality, which is a huge, huge investment.
Well, I mean, you could do it with just a Dragon
Right,
Halberd.
Or you could just swap to the Halberd and do it if you really want.
My ult is training in the background for this is currently 56 attack. She will be buying a Dragon Halberd.
You know, that's so wonderful because I was a huge fan of halberds when they came out, but I never really got to utilize them to the max potential. So that's good.
Yeah. So this is cool. This is now got an additional long range sweep ability.
So we're gonna have a stack of dragon halberds, gothic staves, and dark bows in our banks then.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got options there, right? Like I was talking about, you could have Dragon Claws for single target damage. You can use for ranging. This is so far off the meta and so far off the topic, but I love Rune Throne Axes because the Rune Throne Axe deck only costs 10% adrenaline and hits like 6 targets for like 95%. Like it's pretty decent weapon damage. Like it's really good for wave clearing at Telos minions and Araxor minions. Actually, I had a Rune Throne Axe in my EOF for the longest time when they first came out because it was my go-to for like I'm gonna just wave clear because these are a lot of the content that I do. Or like clearing pillars at places, like it's just good AoE. Just good ad clear, good for Slayer. They're great for Slayer because you can just spam out 10 of these axes and they hit everything around you. Want to talk about Gricko? You literally can do 1,000% weapon damage by just fight to everything in like 6 or 7 or 8 targets nearby. Just spamming. So Rune Throne Axe is a good
Once
one.
again, asterisk on the EOF.
An incredibly expensive thing. Yes.
All right.
This is effectively just giving tier 90 damage to whatever these specials are. But
yeah,
they've got some fun stacks when you get there.
The loot interface now has a settings button that will take you to the loot systems settings. Now here's one, and I brought this to my Glacier Reaper today because of this. Orichalcum salvage has been added to the array of items that can be processed by the spring cleaner.
Good.
Yeah. Springs are cheap now too.
Yeah.
And it does so you can get it will process your noted stuff insta alkit. Boss just drops GP.
Yeah.
Yep. If you get all the way up to the highest tier, yep.
Being the highest tier, I think with Springs right now costs less than 10 mil.
Yeah, I believe that because it's like 10,000 springs in total.
Yeah, 10,000.
9,000, something like that.
No, it's 10,000. I just did it today, actually.
Okay.
So there you go. Yeah.
The money pouch will now show the total number of coins gained when receiving multiple stacks of gold in a single game tick instead of only the most recent amount received. This will be notable in situations such as using area loot or collecting from Grand Exchange transactions, and the filterable messages in the chat box will still display the individual amounts separately.
Good fix.
Gear Siphon interface can now be used while in combat. However, using the Siphon counter to enter a custom amount will interrupt skilling, and itself will be interrupted by combat. And that's good, I think, because you get that notification when you're at 9. Is it 9 that you want to siphon at? I don't remember. Was it 9 or 12?
I siphon at 12.
9 for speed, 12 for best speed.
Okay, right. I know there have been a lot of times where I would get that notification and just forget to do that. So that's good that you can do that.
Mine is if you want to disassemble something for components, it's technically slightly higher XP, but we're talking like 2-3%.
Right.
It's not worth the price of the siphon.
Yeah.
Frankly.
It's ever so slightly better.
Perhaps one of you guys can explain this one to me. Removed restocking time from the skill capes shop in the Max Guild, as well as removed the buy all option for shop items that have less than 2 in stock, and added the stock number for any skill capes in the generic shop interface.
So I think what that means is the skill cape shop now has infinite stock.
Yeah,
I don't know why you would want that.
Only stocks thing. Well, because you, if you want
I guess
a
if
cape
you're
to
swapping
throw,
out your max cape perks all the time.
is swapping out Max Cape perks, you want a stack of capes. I mean, the issue was you would buy Ellen Antarth's stock before, and she would just have no stock until the next day. You only had a stock of one.
Okay.
And so if you wanted to use one to put a perk into a gatherer's cape, but then still have that cape for cosmetic reasons, or if you wanted to buy a cape and then keepsake it and then buy another one to use, it's one of those niche things where you might want multiple skill capes, either to put the perks on something or. Again, clearly this has been an issue for a while and has not been a serious concern for people because you can always go to the skill cape sellers themselves and buy it through chat for most of them. But cool, nice change.
And you can't disassemble them. That was my next question.
You cannot.
Gonna throw any wrinkles into it. All right, now I got one for you, Faxi, here. The Berserker, Maniacal, and Reckless auras have had their full effects added to their description within the aura interface, as well as more examined text on these auras.
Very shame. It's been more than 6 years. It's been more than 6 years.
And from the way you were describing this, nobody knew, in effect, what they actually did behind the scenes with this.
Well, I didn't know about this. This was one of those, the high-tier PVMers, the folks that, write articles for PVME and that have records and the, we'll say the top couple thousand of people. When these came out in 2016, they were the only people that knew about this. Maybe 1,000 people or less. And a couple years later, people had done enough testing to be like, oh, hey, this is a thing. And then our lovely friend who no longer plays the June song made videos about this, and I think probably Product-Maker, RSBANDB, whoever else, the other YouTubers. But Junesong was the PVM guy. He made the PVM guides for the longest time, and everybody was like, "These are the things to go do. This is how I learned to do rotations. This is how I learned to do all these things." Videos are a little bit dated at this point, but that was the comparison of auras was done. He had a whole chart that he would put out. It was this is how these things work. That it doesn't only increase your damage by your level by 15%. It also increases your damage output by 15%. That's why you compare those to an accuracy aura, which is just here's 20% accuracy, or here's 15% accuracy, whatever it is, which is good. But compared to 15% accuracy, 15% more damage from the levels, and 15% more damage on top. But at the trade-off, again, of 10% less defensive levels, so you're taking 10% more damage from that, plus taking 10% more damage on top. Or, I had those backwards. The 10s and 15s should be the other way.
I'm just going to read one of them out. I'm going to read the Reckless one out now. Enter a Wrathful State, which boosts your range damage, accuracy, and range level by 10% each. This boost comes at the cost of both reducing your defense level and increasing your damage taken by 15%. Does not work in Wilderness.
You'll notice they specify now damage and level are increased separately.
Yeah.
And level increases both damage and accuracy. And the level will increase the visible bonus, right? So that will increase, you can literally see the change that makes in the equipment interface. That is very clear. But the plus 15% damage bonus was not something that was visible unless you did specific testing on a max hit or min hit dummy. Anyways, that's really cool that people are now aware that these auras that are also only available in the Wars Retreat shop, so you have to PVM for 25 hours or whatever it is to obtain one of these now.
I obtained them before Wars Retreat came out, thankfully.
Right. Yeah. And once you've PVM'd for you do daily Reaper tasks, you get that done in under a month.
Yeah.
So it's for the PVMers, it's for the end tier people.
I need to start using those because I think I can move off of vampirism at some places and start pushing the range.
Can.
So
on Soul Split, you really once you start soul splitting, that's a really great next step at a lot of places.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that, like, you probably don't want beginner PVMers using these. Like, beginner PVMers should be on, like, if you want damage, you can use Dark Magic or Majorat or one of the other kind of more damage-focused auras. The trade-off on these does mean that you are taking about 20% more damage a lot of places, which is, I mean, like, reminder of the way the RuneScape combat system works. Very quick aside, right? The player deals greater than 10 times the damage that we take. Right, our life points is 10,000. We go into a boss with even 10 food, and we're going to deal 100,000, 200,000, 1,000,000 life points worth of damage to that boss. And you have to, like, that's why Soul Split works, where you get 15% of your HP back, capped at 200. Any damage you do over 2,000 doesn't get Soul Split on it. So it's really under 15% that you get, but it's more than enough to sustain your full life points against multiple creatures most places. So the note that you're taking 20% more damage, people don't realize how much more that is than they're used to taking.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's why it's a good trade-off. Actually, you take 30% more damage, you do 20% more damage. We'll use round numbers. It's not exact, but around numbers, right? It's so much more worth it to be putting out 20% more damage because that's a huge amount of damage you're putting out. And you take 30% more, but that 30% you take is hefty. So, good that those auras maybe aren't available, but
okay.
Fixes. Overdue to clarity.
Next up, the much anticipated Magma Tempest nerf / changes.
Yeah.
Before I let you loose here, and we'll try and keep this concise. I just want to say what David had to say. He messaged me the day that this went in live. He said they didn't just nerf it, LOL. They took it out back, shot it, and put it through a meat grinder, then cremated it after to make sure. And they didn't have the decency to scatter the ashes.
I sense bitterness.
Go ahead.
I mean, it was best magic ability. If you had the Fractured Staff of Armadillo, even if you didn't, this thing, use it to just destroy piles of things. Like, using this on Slayer, you just insta-kill everything that entered the radius of it. Very large
everything in
radius.
the room.
I mean, it's
where
what
you do
is
some
9x9 or a
tasks.
7x7 or something. It's huge. With the crit stick, you just crit on everything, and the way that forced criticals work in this game is that they take whatever your damage would have been, and they make it 120%. So there's actually two types of critical hits in the game. There's forced criticals and natural criticals. Anything that is an item that increases your critical hit chance is forced. Everybody has a 5% base natural crit chance. So the biting perk, the Rex Matriarch rings, all those things are forced criticals. So whatever your damage was, that average 50% damage value, because Magma Tempest had an even damage spread, you had just as much likelihood of hitting the middle value, the highest value, and the lowest value. There are a few abilities that don't work that way, but it did. And so a critical took that 50% damage value and more than doubled it to 120%.
Yeah.
So if you were running...
I'm just going to lay out
the crit chance...
Oh, sorry, continue.
If you're running a setup with high crit chance, it did massive things. And the other thing with this that Mod Sponge had mentioned is that there is an Overloads have this thing, honestly, apparently somewhat similar to the Reckless auras, the Berserker auras, where they increase your level, but they also apparently... I have no idea how this works, and I cannot math it, but the math that's on the news post for this makes no sense without some other factor in it. Literally no sense at all. It doesn't math with the things that he literally writes on there. But overloads apparently also apply on hit an additional portion of your level as damage. So they're guaranteed damage on top of your actual hit that's packaged in. And so that was why, because this hit a bunch of times for really low numbers, it was doing massively more damage than expected because this just wasn't factored into it. So the nerf, the sheer pure damage of it, you're probably going to read the tooltips for these.
Yeah,
but the nerf
I wanted to read the tooltip.
It's compensatory for this, so go for it.
Before we got too far into it, and effectively what's happened is that the Magma Tempest damage has been reduced from 5 to 25% per hit. From that, now it is 5 to 19% per hit, and it can no longer critically strike.
Right.
And the critical strike bit is, of course, coming in with the crit stick or fractured staff of Armadyl, as you mentioned.
Right. So the like on the cover of this, it does 3% ability damage, less damage per hit, 8 hits, 24% less. So you do like 500 damage from the math without whatever funky factors are being applied to the news post math. You're losing like 500 damage. When you add in the overload, apparently this is compensatory for those overload fixes, that should balance itself out roughly, where you get 8 hits and you get that extra damage. That part of it isn't crazy, right? Like on its own, as written there, over the course of 8 hits, it does 96% ability damage. Average basic, right? Your 5-second cooldown basics, like sacrifice, those kind of things, they're all 94%. So this is right on par. This is fine. Does hit everything in a giant AoE, so it's a lot of damage if you can stack it on multiple targets. So like great for Slayer. Its own, not too great. When you add that extra factor in from overloads, where this is really intended to be used, that damage goes up slightly, and it becomes better. But effectively, what this means is that it's previously this was the best basic ability for magic.
Yeah.
It beat out Corruption Shot because every tick of this can also activate poison. So we should also mention there's 8 poison ticks in there, which is 64% ability damage when you're using Cinderbanes. And weapon poison plus, whatever the highest one is. And so, that without weapon poison, it's a middle of the road ability, right? It's weaker than Greater Concentrated Blast, worse than Corruption Shot, Dragon Breath, and Combust. With poison, it becomes better than Dragon Breath and equivalent to Combust as long as your Combust isn't on a moving target, because Combust damage doubles on a moving target. So it becomes a third-in slot on poisonable targets that don't move. And so obviously on 3+ targets.
The sense I'm getting from this is that I think the rumors of its death are greatly exaggerated. It's just not the best thing you can get for Magic anymore in terms of basic.
That's the negative part of this, right? Is that it can't crit, and the crits, like we said, did like 2.4 times damage from what you would normally expect. Like crits were huge. So it not being able to crit and this decrease in damage brings it down to average and usable and great for like Slayer and Wave Clear. The caveat to that we have to mention is that it is additional hit points and it does activate on hits. So Magic has a huge build lately with critical hit builds, right? The Staff of Armadyl, the Channeler's Ring, the ease with which you can use the Tsunami ability, which then gives you adrenaline when you critical hit, right? Like all that's great and synergizes very nicely. This not being able to crit now brings the Magic on hit build up, right? On hit has been the home of range for a long time. That's the use of using like your Wyvern crossbows and greater ricochet. Like it's good because it hits 8 times and it can activate 8 Bacriminal bolts or whatever it is. So we need to like think about what on hits Magic can use with this, and the 2 big ones are poison, obviously, and God books. So, for example, with the Book of Wen, you're hitting each target 8 times, which is if you have like 3 targets, you have 24 hits. The Book of Wen has a 6% chance to activate, so you're basically guaranteeing your God book will activate within the first couple seconds of using this ability on any number of targets. So like if you're using this at Angel of Death and you've got 5 targets with the minions in next in the middle. And then obviously that Book of Wen does its own AoE damage to everything present. So in groups, this is still an incredibly strong ability, but you want to time when you use it to hit those multiple targets and have your book ready to go. And it's more strategic, or you just use it on Slayer for Wave Clear. It's still a good ability. It's not dead, but it is.
It feels like it's where it should be.
Yes, and to be clear, it was worth more than a max cash stack, more than 2 bill and change, and it will like value-wise with all of those things I just mentioned. It like think about how long Greater Chain sat there without being used because it's just this AOE. It does damage to multiple targets, right? It's really only useful a couple of bossing places. Expect this will be somewhere in that kind of a range where it is worth extra, 50 to 500 mil. Like, it's a pretty wide range, but I don't want to nail down based on drop rates where this is going to be.
Yeah, and that was my next question, is that I think if you go fight Zach, you're going to still get excited when you get this as a drop.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. You should. It's still going to be worth some amount of money. It's not a sword piece, but it's going to be one of his better drops. It's, it should be on par with the God Book from him. We'll talk about God Books in a second too. The other thing that I did want to mention with this, and I know we're getting towards the end of the segment on it time-wise, is that it adds an additional basic ability for magic, right? So when you're thinking about ability bars, you have 3 goals with ability bars, and we can expand on this later if we want to, but the goals with these are that you don't sit on 100% because you have adrenaline, you should turn that into damage. You don't want to auto-attack because auto-attacks in the game do less than half as much damage as one of your even average basic abilities, one of your worst basic abilities, and you never want to be, you always want to try to use the highest damage ability you can, right? So those are the 3 big tenets of building ability.
Right, because we now have the targeted and the AoE version of this ability. Right,
and so because they've added in the ability that will fire on the revolution, you can use this to create full AFK revolution bars, whereas maybe you couldn't before, right? And so Magic and Ranged have been limited since their release because they have a limited number of basic abilities. Melee has attack and strength abilities, so it has a much larger pool to pull from, get good high damage basics to create a solid revolution bar. What this allows you to do is previously in Magic and Range, if you wanted to full AFK revolution and you didn't want to activate ultimates because you wanted to have consistent damage, right? Ultimates pull all of your adrenaline. So right after you activate an ultimate, you don't have thresholds going off. So your damage goes up and down quite a bit. It's not great for fully AFK Slayer. So you want to build just a regular Revo Plus bar with thresholds and maybe occasionally manually activate an ultimate is optimal Slayer usage. So with this, with Magic and Rings, you've never had enough basics to not use that 3-second ability, which does some of the worst damage of a basic ability. You would usually stick it second to last on your bar, and that would guarantee that your bar was an infinite, right? You would never auto-attack because we want to avoid that.
Right. We're talking about snipe, right? On the
snipe, and in this specific case, the rack ability.
Right. And we got a buff with rack if you're using exsanguinate earlier.
Right, so the exsanguinate builds these rack and ruin stacks. Each stack adds 1% damage onto your basic abilities, which, hey, basics, what are we just talking about? All these great basics you can use. And rack and ruin consumes all of those stacks every time you use rack when you have 12 of them. So you lose that 12% damage buff, and you do some extra damage with rack, but it also costs you runes. So every stack of this that you get up to 12 costs you runes. And once you're at 12 stacks, you're almost never using runes. So exsanguinate is very, very cheap to use if you never need to use rack and ruin, if you never use this ability. And so what Magma Tempest allows us to do is it just adds another basic. It adds to the magic toolbox, right? Since Magic is released, we've gotten Corruption Blast, we've gotten now Magma Tempest, right? We've gotten a couple of extra abilities we can chuck in there that fill those slots to fill out a revolution bar to be infinite, to never hit 100% adrenaline because you've got enough thresholds, and never hit the end of your revolution bar so you're auto-attacking. And this might allow us to pull rack and ruin off of a bar so that on a Slayer bar, you can do all of these things without activating rack and ruin, which means you always have your much cheaper rune costs and you maintain that 12% basic ability damage buff.
Interesting, because that actually lines up with what David said in his comments here, is that he feels it's a great Slayer ability. And I don't know if you agree with this, but he also feels the non-revolution version of the ability is still better.
I agree.
Okay.
I think this is one of those things that you really want to place it in a specific location. That requires it to be off of Revolution. So if you're being an active combatant, right? If you're the David of the world, if you're on full manual, this is a great ability because you never want to use the Revolution version of it, of course, because on your target, you always want to use it like you use Bladed Dive, where you select the ability and then select the location. You can select between several targets to hit multiple and more. But if you're on full revolution, it will also work for that. So there's two sides of this coin, depending on if you want to be actively paying attention and putting out maximum damage, you absolutely want to be using that targeted version. Again, shout out to Sponge for putting together the two versions of this.
And David also says that he'd still pay 500 mil for this.
Yeah, and I've heard other people say they'd be willing to pay a bill. These are coming from a lot of people who have enough money to have previously bought it when it was 2.4 bill. Let's like really caveat here that these people are people with money. And eventually all of those people who have money will already have the ability. And then the rest of us get to decide what it's worth.
Right.
Or the merchers. Bless them.
Zerdones, do you have any questions about any of this? Because I know this is combat math.
This is way beyond my ability.
All right, fair enough.
This is way beyond my current level.
Long story short, it adds a basic to maybe make Slayer AFK much, much better. It's a great AoE. It's a great Slayer. It's a great for AFK. They took the ability to crit off of it, which massively decreased the damage intrinsic to the ability. Massively. Like, that cannot be understated that it was amazing damage before. It was best. Now it is not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have it. I've never used it, but everything I've heard about it, it seems like it was way too powerful when it came in. Like when it came out, I know you had David on the podcast talking about it, and he was telling stories about how like people would go to AOD with it, and AOD would just melt.
Right. Yeah. So it's still good, but it is now situational. It's now, in some situations, this is a god tier ability, and in some situations, namely single target bosses with lower health pools, not so much. That's it.
All right.
That's where the ability stands.
Sounds good.
And change. Probably balance that needed to happen, as much as people are going to complain.
I agree.
Sure.
All right. One more patch note before we move on to the other minor patch notes. The Scripture of Jazz has also been tweaked in such a way that the damage cap has been increased from 10,000 to 30,000. And the patch notes say that the Scripture of Jazz was in an odd spot where it's more difficult to correctly use compared to the Scripture of When, while also capping how much of a benefit you gain from it. As a result, the damage cap on the item has been raised in the hope that it may fill a better niche for players utilizing a lot of damage over time effects, which would not be boosted by the Scripture of Full.
Right. So Scripture of Full applies a 15% additional damage, very similar to Berserk. It's a mini Berserk, right? Berserk damage-reducing ultimates don't affect bleeds. This affects all the damage you do. This is a big deal for people that do tons and tons and tons of damage. Because previously they were hitting, you had to do the equivalent of 600,000 damage a minute, right? In order to cap the Scripture of Jazz before, right? You had to do 100,000. No, it's 10. Oh no, it's 20%. So you had to do half that much, 300,000 damage a minute. That was okay. My brain did a fart there. Yeah. So it's 20% of the damage you deal over the course of 10 seconds. The Scripture Full does 15 seconds for 20% additional damage. What this does now is that this will increase the damage, effectively give you 20% additional damage on your bleeds. So if you've got bleed running when you do this, you'll get additional damage from them. The other thing to note about this versus the Scripture of like When, for example, is that it's retargetable. So if I was fighting large monsters, right, like let's say brutish dinosaurs or something that's just like a big sack of hit points that's got like 100,000 hit points, and I like get a proc of this book while I just use Death Swiftness, and I do 100,000 damage to something, and I just destroy it. I can then select a new one and just chuck 20,000 damage on it. Like there
right, because it fires off at the end of that 10-second countdown.
Right. Your current target. So not the target that you did the damage to.
It's whoever your target
fires off at whatever your target is at the end of 10 seconds. Right. So this is really good for a lot of like there are unique uses for this where you can redirect doing tons of damage to an untargetable or an undamageable target while some animation is happening and then drop it onto something else. This will do like doing 50,000 damage in 10 seconds, which is what this was before. It's very easy for most high tier people, like especially if you just pop to Death Swiftness and you don't do that much damage in 10 seconds. Like that is not typical for a lot of like mid to higher tier PVMers, because they're just massive damage output. So this undoes that cap and says this is now a good item for you to be using. I mean, I don't know. I think there's a lot of like niche use for this and benefit that it's worth 15 mil, and if you don't have one, you should pick one up.
Yeah, and I think in general, people, from what I've seen, tend to prefer the When book over the Jazz book, but
anytime you have multiple targets, right? So like Glacior minions, Telos minions.
That's when you want the Wen book.
Or like Twain Furies, you want the Wen book. I have been using the Jazz book basically everywhere else. I have been using the Jazz book for time I'm like rapidly switching or killing targets. Like I would not use the Wen book for Slayer actually, because my targets will die before it goes off.
Right.
Because it takes 5 or 6 seconds to activate. I would absolutely use the Jazz book for Slayer because I can just quick flip to a different target and just destroy something.
Yeah.
And then flip back to my original target.
And a good thing with all the books is, except for the big one at this point still, is that the pages are still relatively workable too in terms of the value. So that's good.
Yeah. I mean, the Wen book, like you say, people are using a lot of it. Those pages are, I think, 200K. Like the Jazz book, the pages are also like 50K.
Right.
These last HS, they're like so cheap. So my alt has a Jazz book and will be using it for Slayer. I will use that thing everywhere because it is. Well, it's a lot of damage.
Okay.
It's a lot of free damage.
Before we move on, my question would be: is how do I know where I'm at? Where I'm at on this scale of damage from the on this? Am I under 10,000? Am I 5,000? Where?
Great question.
Like, how do you know that when this book is active? That's one thing I'd like to know. But like, how much damage have you channeled into it? Yeah, something like that.
It's one of those things that I could tell you, generally speaking, at various points in my rotation, how much damage I'm putting out. I have more than 200 million experience in the range skill at this point, and probably half of that is at bossing, right? Like I know my rotation pretty well, and I could tell you for at most points in my range rotation about what my DPM probably is. Right, like at the start of a Death Swiftness when I'm firing off a bunch of thresholds under it, the DPM is close to probably 400, 500 per minute. Versus when the Death Swiftness has just ended and I'm building back up to use it again. I'm probably dropping 100 or so. Like I think my average is close to 300-ish. Well, but that's building in familiar damage and building in poison damage and building in
lots of experience with that too. Okay.
Right.
All right.
So
it's
something you kind of have to get a feel for. It would be nice if they had a like a buff bar counter.
And that's
why
I think
it wouldn't update frequently enough. That's the issue, is that the buff bar, I think, doesn't cycle through. It would always be a few ticks behind, which would lie to you.
All right.
You just have to have a sense for it.
Moving on.
Like at the start of a Death Swiftness, it goes off. It's going to do a lot of damage. After Death Swiftness, the book goes off. It's not going to do a lot of damage.
Anybody worried about the value of the Croesus front? Given these next patch notes here, increase the drop rate of the Resonant Anima Bic from skilling nodes in Santistan. Because the fishing and hunter nodes now have a 50% chance to reward anima when successfully gathering, and mining and woodcutting will now reward guaranteed anima on a successful resource gather.
I did, on Monday, 3 hours of Croesus woodcutting.
How much anima did you get?
About 500. You get 3. You get 3 to 6 per successful chop of regular or enriched nodes.
So you're still going to be way better off doing the boss then.
The boss, well, I have not done the boss recently. Like for the longest time, right? You were getting 80 anima per hour from the boss.
Yeah. It was slow. And I think that was 2 or 3 weeks ago they patched that.
Patch that out. Okay, So I've not been back, so I actually don't know what the rates are per hour. But I was getting like 200 to 300 per hour, very AFK, mind you, questing on the alt at the time. Or no, I was bone running on the alt at the time at not my house. But so it was one of those things where I would click every like 3 minutes. I think you could probably earn about 300 anima an hour. I'm going to say that's probably, you cap it about 300 anima an hour. I think you could probably get more from Hunter, because the Hunter rates are just much faster.
Hunter is so fast.
Mining, you're probably a little under that. Fishing, you're probably a little over that.
Right, and that's why they would have the 50% chance for fishing and Hunter then. Okay.
So, I think it's good. Last I heard, price for anima has dropped. I mean, when I sold the stuff that I'd gotten then, it was selling for 4 to 6K each.
Okay.
So it is going to drop.
And it's also
heavily.
Factoring in the boss changes from a few weeks back too. So let's keep that in mind.
Yeah. Seems okay. Like, I also don't think that the like overcharging a ring should cost 100.
No,
I don't
absolutely
think it should.
not.
I think
Absolutely
overcharging
not.
a ring should cost, for these first few weeks, a few mil. And like at the end of the day, if you're buying, because you need 6,000. If you're buying 24,000 total anima, like I think you're probably fair. If each anima is worth 500 gold and it costs 1.2 mil to overcharge a ring a year from now, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. All right.
I don't even know if it'll be that much. I think they'll probably drop down to being ultra cheap, and they may need to have a dump for it at some point.
Next up, Croesus gets its colorblind option. The particles that appear on the core underneath Croesus are now red, blue, and yellow in order to help with color blindness, and this can be toggled through a right-click on Gorvak. Good. This is something that we discussed a lot about and was a point of contention numerous times in terms of, how do you get something in the game that is effectively invisible to people who are colorblind. We talked about this a lot when we saw the prototype that Shrew put out with this. The question, of course, is there enough contrast with that? So as we always say here on the podcast, baby steps are good. We're making progress in the right direction, and that's something that we're going to be happy about. So, well done. Well done.
Now, have either of you guys have you looked to see if they actually look like that prototype, or if it's been changed at all?
I'm just taking the patch note for the word that they are going to be just like that prototype, because I've not gone back yet this week.
I haven't either.
Though with that
you
being
guys have
said,
talked about that one.
Yeah, it would be good to do some Croesus at some point soon in the future again. Fixed an issue that prevented the Tempest of Armadyl from dealing additional hits to nearby target when combined with Greater Chain.
Yep.
What is Tempest of Armadyl?
That's
the
another
Armadyl
special
battle staff spec.
Oh,
yes, that is
okay.
the tier. I believe it's 87.
77.
Oh,
Yep.
is that low?
It's that low, yeah. Well, it's unlimited air runes.
It is, but I mean,
And it's non-degradable.
Suppose. Okay, yes, it is the non-god weapon battle staff of Armadyl.
Yep.
Apparently, that staff sells for 57 million GP.
Yes, indeed. We've talked about this too. It is the best adrenaline dump for magic with the Fractured Staff of Armadyl because it gives you 4 chances to critically hit.
Right.
And it stacks with or 5 chances, I believe, actually. It stacks with the Chandler's Ring, so each one of those has 3% consecutively, additively higher critical chance. So using that special attack, you can reach 50% critical chance in the last hits. It stacks very well with.
Okay, so it makes sense why this change was made then.
It's also really obnoxious to get because you have to get 100 shards of Armadyl for it. Only drop from Glaciers, only in the Glacier Cavern in Weiss. In Weiss, yeah.
Yep.
So that's why it's expensive.
All right.
People are just dropping them into OFs and.
Lots of money to be had there if you have those. In response to player feedback, the name of your current Slayer Reaper monster has been added to the Slayer tooltip counter to more easily determine the name of the target when the counter is in shrink mode.
Hey, it used to only say the weakness of the creature and not tell you what it was.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. In response to player feedback, they have reduced the sizes of cash bags and daily challenge reward chests, so larges will now be mediums and mediums will now be small. Because when you think about it, you could have a chance of doing a daily challenge and hitting one of your weekly reward tracks and getting 1 million GP for that.
Oh,
yeah.
So much more money coming in through that.
Once a week, it was just 1 mil, which, like, I think in the overall, like, you'll get that in Alks from a single Arc Glacier kill. Like, let's be very clear that 1 million coins, and it also scales with your total level, the amount of gold that you get.
Mm-hmm.
So very new players were not getting that. And living proof that you can have 1,800 total levels and 200 quest points in 3 weeks. So here we are. While studying like mad. So clearly training and total levels don't mean what they used to. But
that's a topic for a different day.
Yeah,
very much.
Yeah. I don't think it was, in all honesty, that much gold coming in if you're once a week getting either 100k or 1 mil.
But if everyone's hitting the
nice
daily challenge system, it could be a problem.
I wish they would remove the small pouches off there, because rolling...
Small ones are kind of insulting, I think. I'd rather have augments, actually, like the Iron Man. That's the next one.
That doesn't feel great to me, but...
What was that, Zerdones?
I didn't say anything.
Oh, I thought you did. All right. In response to player feedback, cash bags are now substituted for oddments and daily challenges if you're an Iron Man.
That's great. Good change. Great.
I've been seeing a lot of chatter from the Iron Man community on the subreddit and on Twitter, like interacting with Mod Stu, trying to find the balance for what the Iron Man should be getting out of this. So I like that they're taking that feedback on board and they're adjusting.
Yeah, and for Iron Man, the oddments effectively amount to cosmetics, I think, because they can't buy the lamps or the...
Pretty much, yeah.
So.
Yeah, track rewards only.
Yeah. Aura refresh items that are gained from your daily challenge system are now automatically added to your Aura refresh interface. And there's the patch notes for the week, my friends.
Yeah. All
right. Just a couple of other little notes here before we wrap up today. There was the Mod Golden Partyhat Hunt live stream with Mod Hooli and Mod Spear this week. Not too much came out around that, but we did learn that Mod Iroh, the art director, has left Jagex. They do say a lot of the things he has been responsible for will live on. And following this, the obvious question is, what about the player avatar rework? They stress it's not been canceled, it's just paused. The project needs to be rescoped to fit within the bounds of the issues that have been found, and there's just been so much that came up, and it really turned out to be a bigger project than they were anticipating, and that they wanted to focus on Elder God Wars instead. I think I saw you talking, Zerdones, about how projects like this can run away and whatnot in terms of scope and size at one point, but I think there's a lot of people who are disappointed by this because we've seen these projects be put on hold before. It doesn't inspire confidence.
Yeah, and I mean, we've already had some deliverables from that project come out, and I think they were very promising. Like, if you go to the isles that were once turtles in the Arc region, like that skybox used to do just horrible things to the player model, and it's a lot better now. So, like, we've definitely had some output from
the cube maps.
The cube maps, yep, that's it. I knew there was a word I was missing.
Yes. I'm sure they had issues with it because they changed the polys and the poly count. I think a lot of like animated items are things that move around the player.
Yeah.
Are probably distorting in interesting ways with this that have already been optimized. And I'm sure that, like, in all honesty too, they did say they weren't going to update anything, and like you can tell old cosmetics and old items that are keepsaked, like the skin color differences are there. Like, it's really wild already. I can only imagine trying to put, because literally any old cosmetic that shows any amount of skin would have a hard divide between old texture and new texture, where that was, and it probably didn't look very, like, and I don't think it would look very good.
And we're already seeing this with the capes that came out from Zuck, for example. I was doing some testing with those, and if you pair those with some of the old armors that are in game, they clip right through them. So this is something that's already in game and would only be exacerbated by the avatar rework.
Shane, be very frank. If they had ever cared about clipping even once in the history of the outfits on this game, they would have stopped the front of skill capes from clipping through the boobs on female characters. I'm not kidding. You can see the top you're wearing for literally any top in the game through the front of skill capes. The original retro skill capes. They could just adjust it forward tiniest amount. They've never done it, and it just looks god awful, and it has been in the game for well over a decade. They couldn't care less about clipping. That's just going to happen.
Yeah, and
there are so many in these games that clip.
Do you guys remember the live stream when they first started talking about this earlier this year, how they're in effect working in with a system that has, the parts of the face that are basically unchangeable?
Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah.
I remember, like, it really emphasized just how much, like, spaghetti code is such a huge meme in the RuneScape community, and this really emphasized just what a level of technical debt we're dealing with.
Yeah,
like, I'm sure
20 years of code.
Some of these decisions are things one of the Gowers probably cooked up on a weekend.
Yeah.
20 years ago, and we're still dealing with it.
Yeah.
Legacy code bases are so much fun.
And that really raises the question, what do you do with RuneScape going forward? And what is this unannounced MMORPG that's being worked on inside Jagex?
Well,
I'm just throwing things out there.
Tell us. Yeah.
I mean, it could be.
So I just wanted to lay that out there, and we are now in effectively a deeper holding pattern on that we are now waiting for an art director as well as time to start this project up again. So
I will say they did a second live stream on this where they had one of the lead animators, and I don't remember his mod name, to my shame.
Oh, right.
But I remember they pointed out, I think they showed some of the issues they had with the animations with the new models, because all of those old animations were like manually putting in the pixels. Like, it's not animated like a modern game would be. So like, honestly, I'm not surprised they ran into a technical issue on this, because it's so much old stuff that would have to be updated.
What if they just instead updated the heads?
I think kind of the issue that I was talking about before, where every single top that has an exposed neckline, everything that isn't just a plate armor, you probably get some really disgusting looking interface between the two.
Yeah.
On just everybody, and it's not like something you could turn off. And
I raise the question with this, if you're doing an avatar rework, do you really want that to be what you would ship at the end of the day?
Exactly.
There's too many potential outfits, too many things to wear, and each piece of that would have to be updated with. Like, that's the problem with the last avatar rework, is that it screwed up so many things.
Yeah. I feel like this is something that we're gonna have to tackle head on in the new year, and we'll get some people on who can talk about art and modeling. So, all right. Just a quick note that on Monday, the next Yak Track Wintumber Aurora, will be arriving. I like the cape that they show off here.
The cape is beautiful.
I have no idea how they're going to if the things are going to be animated as you move your camera, the animation moves behind it, or if it's going to be probably a flowing animation through all of these things. Oh, there's going to be some. See, this is the animated textures that I wanted on my kiln capes.
Yeah,
I'm just saying they could have, if they'd shot that purple Aurora thing that's on that cape, and they just chucked that into like the lava, even just as like a semi-transparent overlay. Ooh, like. I'm just saying, this is what I wanted, and they're putting it in a Yak Track, so I'm going to do that Yak Track.
And they're, of course, showing off the Golden Partyhat with some of these as well.
Yo, pro tip, Golden Partyhat looks so good with the Premier outfit this year. Like, because the Premier outfit has the same color gold on the top, the strapping. Well done. I don't know if that was thought ahead or not. Either way.
Yeah, I think it
was. I'd expect it, yeah.
Yeah, I'd expect it.
I am all over these Yak Tracks, and I still am. We'll have to see what the tasks look like when we get them. But there is a new one as well. There's a new task type called Secret Santa, and you'll need to donate items to the value of 10,000 GP or higher to participate. They'll specify.
I don't think it's a task. I don't think that news post specified that was a task on the Yak Track, actually. I think that was
no, it says this track's new task type is all about generosity.
Interesting. Well, and the next thing on the news post, of course, is saying that if there are no things to exchange for, so it sounds like you put in any item over 10 mil and you get in
10,000
or 10K, and you get in any item that somebody else has put in. So somebody could just, it sounds like somebody could chuck a tier 92 in there and somebody could just get a tier 92. I don't expect that to happen. But
well, let me just read the whole sentence here. You'll need to donate items to the value of 10,000 GP or higher to participate. The Yak Track task will specify certain values ranging from high to low. The donations can be anything you'd be able to sell on the GE, with the notable exception of bonds. In return, you'll get to draw from the prize pool once per hour. Who knows what gifts you'll get?
Yeah, it sounds like this was just a running thing, and that by participating in it, you would get Yak Track progress for some tasks. But it sounds like this is just every hour. Yeah. Anybody who wants to can just chuck stuff in here.
Right, because there's a guy in Burthorpe who you'll be able to do this with. And in the event there are no prizes available, you'll get one of the Christmas food items. So the turkey drumstick, the potatoes, the Yule log, the mulled wine, the pudding, or the mince pie.
I think it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a neat idea.
Like, there's definitely going to be people that just chuck in, 5,000 vials and be like, haha.
I'll be giving the gift of seeds.
Sure, but I think there's also going to be people that do throw in I don't even know if it's even a big thing, but some salvage or something that's worth 100 or a couple hundred K, a whip or something that if some new player were to get it would be super cool. Because that's the thing, right? Everybody participates in the act tracks. It's not just your compers. So you wait a few days for the compers to finish doing their thing, and then you just get a ton of new players who are doing these, and maybe you make somebody stay.
This is going to be so interesting.
I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, a fun story. I think I'm looking forward to hearing fun stories of what people get out of this. Just the random stuff, somebody just gets 50 chinchompas or just something random. There's so many good troll white elephant gifts that you could just throw in. There's just why did somebody put in 80 spatulas? Whatever it is, you could have fun with it.
Yeah. Yak to the Basics cosmetics rewards will also be added to the Oddman store as well. For if anybody didn't do Yak to the Basics and wants to capitalize on that, there's that. And Black Friday deals are live from the point of this news post Thursday until December 10th. Certain items in Solomon's store will be up to 75% off and 50% off items in the marketplace, including, of course, things like legendary pets. Certain walk animations will also be 50% off. Hairstyles, 50% off. A whole bunch of the packs, like the Dwarven Warsuit pack and the Assassin pack, just to name a couple, will be 75% off. Basically 50 to 75% off, depending on what you're looking at on this entire store. Bank boosters, 50% off. Keepsake keys, 50% off. Yeah. Same things with all sorts of things like prismatic dyes and whatnot as well. Yep. So it's a good time to stock up on anything that you might need. So, alrighty.
Two things to unpack there very quickly. Firstly, I'm really disappointed they didn't add more of the holiday cosmetics from last December's Yak track to the Oddment store for this one.
Yes.
I really wanted the chimney teleport for my alt, and I'm sad that she can't get it. Also, I have already given them $10 for keepsake keys and bank boosters. Because the 50% off on those is so nice. And they didn't, noticeably they didn't, the only legendary pet, or maybe there's one or two others that aren't, they didn't add the reindeer onto this. They still were paying full price for the reindeer. I wonder if they would have made a ton of money off making the reindeer even 25% off. I wonder if a bunch of people would have bought it. It was not included in there. But yeah, bunch of legendary pets if you need a legendary pet, and bank boosters and keepsake keys are a big deal.
All right, good. That pretty much wraps up the show. Let's do picks of the week. So I'm going to let Zerdone start with the pick of the week.
Sure. So my pick of the week is a website called 1900hotdog.com. So this is a comedy hilarity website. They update every weekday with a piece of pop culture, a forgotten piece of pop culture, which is weird and wacky and sometimes often not very good. And they go through it in an amusing way, and they share these little nuggets of the way the past was comically awful. I wanted to highlight this as my pick of the week for a couple of reasons. One reason being that it's just the funniest freaking thing on the internet.
And it looks like it stepped out of the 90s.
It is very. There is a very strong thematic line to it. It's very whimsical. It's very silly. It's very wacky. It's a lot of fun. The other reason I wanted to highlight it is because the economics of long-form publishing on the internet are not good. If you want to live in a world where you can read long-form, tightly crafted content and make sure the people making it get paid a reasonable amount, that is very, very hard to do.
Absolutely.
And I know Shane knows this because the only model that seems to really work is Patreon.
Yeah.
So this is Patreon supported. They do, I said they do 4 articles a week and 2 podcast episodes. Reliably, one of each of those is free every week. The rest is behind Patreon. And it is completely Patreon supported. There are no ads except for the fake ones, which they make and they put in the articles, which are just full of jokes and pure humor, pure comedy. This is a highlight of my week. This site, I love it to death.
Satire, done
Absolutely.
well.
And that's so important that you mentioned that, because I am 100% on that bandwagon of supporting creators directly through something like Patreon or Locals or Substack for people who do independent journalism. And anytime you see a podcaster or even any organization that's writing like this, that's putting these things out, it is a big deal. And it's always good to draw attention to those kind of creators. So thank you, Zerdones, for that. All right, my pick of the week this week is a website / app / tool that you can download and run on your browser. You can run it on an Apple TV or Chromecast. And, there's lots of people out there who like to just have something running on a screen as a way of, in effect, having a picture wall, for example. And one of the ways to do that is with video. And there's this website called armchairtourist.com. It showcases various locales throughout the world, and a good number of them are actually in Canada that it showcases, hence how I became aware of this. They have an app for the Apple TV, amongst other things, and you can just pop this up on your TV and you'll get any number of scenes from around the world. And it just showcases videos that people have submitted on their website. And as a result of that, you can just think of this as a way of seeing the world without actually leaving your house. And it's something that obviously well needed during the pandemic, just as an example of that. They have apps for Apple TV, Fire TV, and Roku. And for anybody who has been used to traveling in the past, or just, prefers to have a picture of a, say, natural scene looking out there that they might not have been able to get to, this is a good option for that, either in your browser or on your favorite TV streaming service. And it's 100% free, armchairtourist.com. So give that a look. And the one it's got showing up right now, for anybody looking at the video version, is London, England. So that's my pick of the week. So maybe that'll be useful to one of you guys here on that, or anybody else listening to the podcast. So.
Cool.
All right. And the fun thing is that there's numbers associated with them, so you can actually guess where it is. So it's
cool.
kind of think of it as a picture guess thing, and then after a while it'll tell you it. That's one thing I forgot to mention with it too. So we're going to move on to achievements right now. Starting off, we have Lord Deluxe with 99 Slayer on the 24th of November. Ellie the Wise got 99 Woodcutting on the 23rd. Iron VSS got 99 Constitution on the 23rd. Juju Making got 99 Agility. And Darkest Night got 99 Prayer on the 22nd. And Ubi Danubi got 99 Hunter on the 22nd.
And still on the 22nd, we have Queen Adena with 99 Farming and 99 Attack. Thieves with 200 mil Mining XP. And on the 21st, Ali the Wise with 99 Fishing. It's Katu with 120 Herblore, very nice. And Rob with 99 Agility, still on the 21st.
You did a wonderful job with that name.
I just like that, but it's a fun name. I like it.
Yeah.
On November 20th, we had Ali the Wise with 99 Mining. He's a till. How's it going? We had Lord Deluxe with 99 Herblore, and we had Taffing Spy with 99 Ranged. Also, The Outdoors with 99 Woodcutting. And then on November 19th, we had Delenda Est with 120 Dungeoneering. Good job, everybody.
Well done. Well done. Alrighty, what have we been up to in RS? Let's start with User Dones.
Well, in theory, I'm working on comping. I'm really close, but all the recs I have left are things I don't want to do, so I've been procrastinating on them. By my most recent procrastination project is making a blessed flask.
You don't say.
It's a good one.
Yeah, I think this might be a common theme.
Yeah, it is.
So I'm very close. I'm very close. I have everything now except for the Dark Animica Stone Spirit and the Holy Elixir, and then I'm done.
Nice.
And I think there's something else to do to keep me from going back to Charm Sprites. I'm losing my freaking mind.
Aww. Charm Sprites at least are over pretty
What are
quick.
you doing Charm Sprites for?
Actually.
You need 1,000?
Oh,
1,000 of them for the comp rec.
Oh my god.
Well,
Yeah.
it unlocks the enhanced Yactui stick, which gives you 5% additional hunter experience everywhere.
Yeah, but Faxi, I have 99 Hunter and I have the pet. I don't care about Hunter anymore.
I
This
think I
is
have
money.
the enhanced Yactui stick. The question is, how did I get
It only
that?
takes like 2 to 3 hours to do this. You have to be pretty precise clicking. It would be god-awful on mobile.
Okay.
It's just so I can't do it for more than 20 minutes. I just hate it so much. Just something about it breaks my brain. I don't know.
It's high intensity and it's obnoxious because they do get it. Like you really do need to click precisely. And it may be that like they redid the click boxes a couple months ago, and I think basically everything, like the actual click box for stuff, is the actual item itself rather than the area around it, like it used to be. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Which might absolutely suck for this.
All right.
I have not tried them since then, so I believe you.
Taxi, what have you been up to?
I have been just like doing a lot of studying during the day, and then my evenings have been spent I started a new alt account. My first alt account, I had an Iron Man a while back, and I realized I like having a bank and the GE, so we're regular account. The account goal just to do the quests in more or less timeline order, which I realized, having looked at it for a while, is just like it's all of the novice quests ranked by release date, and then all of the intermediate quests ranked by release date. But like it actually makes a pretty good timeline order. It makes sure that you always do the quests in requirement order, so you always have the next requirement for the next thing on the list. You don't have to do quests out of order. It's been really fun to break up the quest series, right? So I like breaking apart the fairy series and breaking apart the like the Myrax series, like doing one quest from each region and jumping around has made it a ton of fun. It's really not grindy. And I don't have to like grind levels for the later quests because I'm getting a lot of them as I go. And then I also added the stipulation for this account that it will never use bolt ammunition, ever. We'll only ever use arrows or maybe some thrown ammo.
That's not that
just
much of
for
a
kicks
problem
and
in this
giggles.
day and age.
Well, it's true. It's very viable, but people just like criminal bolts raw, and I just don't want to. So this account is, as I am a person who enjoys range, if that's not clear, I'll be using the other combat styles as necessary, but all of the bossing and everything I do with this will be on bow, because shield bows are great. So yeah, that was a lot of my week. I have 200 quest points in this account. I started it 3 or 4 weeks ago, and did a lot of prayer this week. That was nice and AFK. Got some Partyhat shards. It's good.
Nice.
It's been good. It's been a fun grind.
Nice. Yeah. All right. As for me this week, I have also been on the Blessed Flask run. Lots of AFKing at the Sandstone in the Metaphos VIP area. I think I've seen Zerdones in there a while back.
It's the worst part of it. That's like more than 80. It's like 85% of the actual grind for the flask.
I crossed 9,000 earlier.
Just mining the sand.
Crossed 9,000 sand earlier.
Oh, very nice. I feel like I transcended another level of consciousness doing that.
Out of 40,000, I just...
That number is so hard to hear.
I bought the Sandstone the week it came out, and I'm very pleased because it was only like 15 hours to to grind it up and make the flask.
But aside from that, earlier this week we did take a bit of a clan quest run through. Sirion, myself, and Alaska through Elite Dungeon. Won the entire thing. That was amusing nonetheless. I have his bones in my bank now.
I was backseating that. That was very fun to watch.
I will take those bones from you when I need 99 per.
That's a deal.
Absolutely
That's a
get
deal.
99 per off Sirion's bones.
But aside from that, I have, of course, also been doing the daily Reaper tasks. The Carapac task was fun this week. It was my kickoff into manual thresholds and ultimates. Lots of discussion with you on that. It's actually turned out really well.
Yay!
Very nice.
I also forgot. That was a lovely evening. Spent several hours with you doing Elite Dungeons 1 token farming with my main and my alt. And then took the mains off for an adventure doing a bunch of God Wars Dungeons 2 bosses. Just low-key PVM and chat hours. Oh my gosh.
That was a fun time. I really enjoyed that. Nice. But aside from that, I did get a greater concentrated blast this week at Carapac, which was always fun. And
you've done a lot of Carapac, it's deserved.
Yeah, and I also need to say that the Archglacier on normal mode with all the mechanics on, it seems to be a phenomenal Reaper task in terms of the money it can bring in, probably about 1.5 mil per Reaper task. So that's good too. I'm enjoying the PVM side of things.
5 mil worth of Reaper points.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. But I believe that's all we have for this week's episode of Update. We'll be back next week for our first show in December. New Yak Track and whatever else might be around the corner. If you want the podcast delivered automatically to you, you can subscribe on any podcast listener out there. We're on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon with your favorite A&E devices, Pocket Cast, Stitcher, and of course YouTube at youtube.com/RSBANDB. Do subscribe there and give us a like. It definitely helps the channel out. That being said, we'll be back next week for another episode of RSBANDB Update. See you then, everyone.
Ciao.
Bye.